And 3, 2, 1. Good morning and welcome to the Friday, August 2nd morning show. It is Friday. It's a beautiful day. We appreciate you joining us today. If you're with us live, thanks for being here. If you're watching this later on social media or YouTube or our website, we appreciate you watching as well. We do ask that you listen if you're driving. Please do not watch while you're driving. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Joining me this morning is Parish Councilman Jeff Ard from District 1. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. You can check us out. That would be the news, any of those places. These shows, as well as our long-form podcast, and Jeff Ard and I will be jumping into a long one after this one, after our morning show. You can find those at www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. We appreciate you checking those out. We also have an app shooting out push notifications. The website is $5 a month. If you're not hip on that, recommend still having the app. We push out a lot of breaking news, especially during storms and those kinds of things. Running through some headlines real quick before we jump in with Mr. Jeff Ard. And just a reminder, we have a poll up about the Watson issue going down with Premier Concrete and the commercial business. We're interested in your opinion. You can find that poll at www.livingstonparishnews.com/opinion. That will be coming back up on August 8th. That would be a week from yesterday at the Parish Council meeting. We'll actually be talking about that in the podcast, so there's a reason to listen. if Jeff Ard was not enough reason to listen.
Yes.
The sales tax for this year barely edged last year by about $30,000 thanks to a stellar month of car sales tax. There it is.
Yep.
So that was good news for the parish to be able to make sure that they keep their financials in order. Both myself and Mr. Jody Purvis, who is the assistant superintendent starting this year after Joe Murphy moved up to superintendent, spoke to the Livingston Young Professionals on Tuesday. We told them to take a chance and do something outside of their comfort zone. It was a great opportunity. You read about what we said, and you can watch the videos. They are online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. Big news out of the school board, interesting news for the Springfield area. The basketball court at Springfield High School has been named after Coach Mark Erdy. You can read about Coach Erdy online at www.livingstonparishnews.com/sports. Miss Sophia Macias, who is just a golf prodigy at a young age, has also received an International Community Service Award from, I think it's Golf International. You can read about that at www.livingstonparishnews.com/living. That story is from David Gray. Real quick update on your traffic. Quite frankly, there is none. It's a pretty slow Friday today. 7:30 a.m. is the current time, and small delays at the 10-12 split, and otherwise pretty clear. So lucky anyone who is on the road right now. 60% chance of afternoon thunderstorms, high of 90 degrees, low of 73 degrees tonight. We would like to remind you that our weather and traffic are brought to you by BRProud.com, which is NBC WVLA 33 and WGMB Fox 44. And now I'm sure a lot of you tuned in. We're going to jump into it with Mr. Jeff Ard. Again, welcome.
All right, thank you.
As we did with Parish Councilman Tracy Girlinghouse, we've got about 5 questions for Mr. Ard for the morning show. Then he and I will take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll jump in for a podcast that'll be released later this afternoon, anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. Or if you're like Mr. Tracy Girlinghouse and you think out loud, maybe a little over an hour. We shall see. So first question. As a member, how do you feel about the Master Plan Committee? How's it going? What the direction of such? Let's hear your thoughts on it.
Well, my first thoughts is we definitely need it. Mm-hmm. Our parish is growing. It's probably growing faster than what we want it to grow. You kind of need some kind of order to the chaos. Mm-hmm. And the best way to do that is with the master plan. Okay. I chose to stay on it instead of appointing someone, mm-hmm. Mainly because I want to see it up and running right.
Gotcha.
And I feel once we get it on the right path, going the right way, then I'll probably appoint someone in my place.
Gotcha.
First thing we got to do is we have to fund it.
Right.
The reason that you need to fund it is it's outdated. When it was originally written, there was a lot of things that we have in our parish now that wasn't even being talked about when they originally did this master plan. You know, we've had some big businesses that have moved in, Epic Piping, Martin Breyer, different things like that that's moved in. It wasn't part. We now have talk of an airport that was not even being considered at the time they did the master plan.
Right.
So we have a lot of things that need to be updated, but by far the number one thing is we have to fund it, because we need to get a firm to come in and actually help rewrite the master plan.
Right.
But we will be able to use a majority of what's already there. So it's not like it's totally lost. So it's just good to work off of, and it needs to be updated.
Right. A good base plan.
Yes.
If you will. So, you know, you talked about a little bit about chaos and a lot of growth
Yes.
here, a lot of growth, especially in the last decade. Let's, you know, starting really after Katrina and then ramping up 2008, 2009. You and your constituents' thoughts about zoning, because you have an interesting
Yes.
geographic location. You know, part of, and we'll get into the drainage in a minute, but you've got part unfunded drainage, part funded. You've got part rural. You've got part, I wouldn't call it suburban, but
Yes.
you know, Livingston and those kinds of areas. So talk to us about, you know, that kind of split and what your thoughts are on zoning and what your constituents' thoughts are on zoning.
Just like you said, I'm on the council. I'm kind of considered the middle guy.
Right.
Not because I ride the fence on voting, but because my district is kind of where the line's at on what we call the east side, west side.
Right.
You know, and everybody's always said out in Livingston Parish, it's two different worlds on the east side and the west side. You know, and you have more of a city type atmosphere on the west side, and you still have your country living on the east side, and I've got both.
Right.
You know, I have both. So as far as zoning, I feel like I do get a 50-50 split on it with my people, because you do have a lot of the people that they still own 20 acres and have cows they raise, and you know, they don't want zoning. They
Right.
feel like I don't want anyone to tell me what to do with my land, and that's what a lot of people come off thinking about zoning.
Right.
And you know, the thought process needs to be changed, that zoning will actually help protect your land.
Right.
Because right now, you could have a big business come in beside you and build there. And according to our ordinances, if they meet them ordinances, we really can't stop them.
Right.
You know, where zoning will actually help us, as I say, you know, control the chaos. You
Right.
know.
Well, and yeah, and you know, the interesting thing is, and I just pulled it up. Right now, if you look at a map of the parish, you have a large section right in the middle, with Livingston basically at I-12 north to 190. You're looking at a population of about 12,500, which will probably change, I'm sure,
Yep.
with the most recent census. And as we said during Tracy's interview, please fill out your census.
Yeah. Yes,
it's
we need it bad.
It's extremely important. It is very, very, very important. So, you know, as you said, there's a little bit of split,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I would imagine that split falls over into drainage. So, as
Yes.
part of the master plan, there's a master drainage plan, or an idea of one,
Yes.
and your district is split between funded and unfunded. First and foremost, where do you stand, funded or unfunded? And you know, give us an idea of what your constituents are thinking as they think funded, unfunded, because there was a proposal. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. That would have been 2 falls ago.
Yes.
For funded gravity drainage. So let's hear it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm for it.
Mhm.
We need to fund our drainage, but we need to have it to where it's more of a parish wide, because you know, with it being districts, each one of them has an area to take care of. Well, we have canals, our main drainages, that runs through 4 different districts. Well, just one in the top might decide, well, we're going to work on that canal this year. We have the funds. Well, if they're not working on it below you, it does no good to do anything at the top, because it's just going to rush through your area, and then it's going to start building up and right back up on you.
Right.
So we have to have a parish-wide plan. We have to have it to where everything's still working together. Mm-hmm. And look, it costs money.
Yeah.
I don't want to ask for more taxes. I don't want to pay more taxes. But that is by far the thing that's hurting our parish the most, is our drainage.
Right.
And we have to come up with something, some way to try to make it better. And I mean, they do a good job on the west side of the parish where it's funded. You know, I have people all the time that call me and say, you know, why can't our canals look like the ones in Denham and Walker? Well, because Denham and Walker pay for them.
Right.
You know, and that's the difference. When you have the money, you can do things with it.
Right.
And unfortunately, we don't, as a parish, all our money comes from taxes.
Right.
So it ain't like we can sell something to make money. You know, so you hate to ask people for more money.
Yeah.
You know, now I think there's other ways. I do not like property tax, because our property owners pay for everything. Right. They do. They pay for everything. I do like it to where you can set up a fee. Everybody pays the same thing across the board, same fee.
Right.
You know, the problem is collecting the fee.
Yeah.
How do you do that? You know, because it's not like we have one company of anything that's parish-wide.
Right.
You know, so it's a big task.
Yeah.
To figure out how to do it.
Right.
But we definitely need to fund it.
Well, and that's what eventually set the wheels in motion to destroy the initial mosquito abatement district. Was Correct. That they were having trouble collecting the fee, tried to move to a tax, and got squashed twice.
Yes.
And that was that.
Mm-hmm.
You also brought up something interesting that is worth mentioning in terms of point of perspective. You know, people from your district talking about, you know, canals looking like they do in Walker and Denham and Watson, which all have funded districts, right?
Correct.
1, 2, and 5.
Yes.
You know, and people here still, I say here, we are currently in Denham Springs doing the show. People locally have expressed displeasure with the current gravity drainage in some of these areas, you know, which is interesting. So let's take a second and talk about that. When you want to take, you know, these 3 huge areas that are densely populated and have funded gravity drainage district, and compare it to what your constituents say, like, oh, those canals are great. You know, what would you say to somebody living in a funded drainage district? I mean, what would, you know, be careful what you wish for?
Yeah, well, I mean, right out to the east side, look at our canals. Mm-hmm. Look at how we have full-grown trees growing up in the middle of them. Yeah. You know, I mean, most of the canals that are in a drainage, they can cut the grass on the banks of the canals.
Right.
You know, we have trees. You know, and it's going to be hard for us because now there are wetlands protected.
Right.
So, I mean, it really is going to take a lot for us to be able to ever get our canals to the point of where they are on the west side. You know, one of the things I'm asked all the time is, well, how did the old police jurymen do it 30 years ago? They kept this whole parish clean. Well, they didn't have rules. They didn't have to go to Army Corps of Engineers and get permits, and, you know, they could just go do it. Right. You know, it needs to be done, just go do it.
Right.
We can't do that. You know, we have to follow the rules, and sometimes the rules takes forever. You know, I mean, it just takes forever to get something accomplished, and sometimes by the time you do get your permits and stuff going, there's something more important that needs to be handled. And it's just the way our parish is going right now. I mean,
well, it's, you know, there's a high leverage of your funds versus grant funding. And grant funding is tough because there's check boxes and you got to check them off. So I understand what you're saying. It's all very slow. And it is from a citizen perspective, it's very frustrating.
Yes.
You know, we also, I went down to an engineering firm on Wednesday, had a discussion with them, you know, and what they say is, you know, you've got to do the study so that you can get that checkbox, so then you can get the money to do the projects. And a lot of times, as you know, they were talking about something that you said. there's not a whole lot of connectivity between the state, the feds, the parish, and then the district.
Correct.
They're trying to create that, but one of the problems they have is the state came and replaced a culvert and made it 4 feet wider. So now all of a sudden you're getting 4 extra cubic feet, or it was probably more cubic feet than that, downstream, and the drainage downstream cannot handle it.
Correct.
So there's a lot of communication there. So I wanted to dive in on that question. We're actually going to come back to drainage because we're going to talk about the rec district tax here in just a second. But let's hit the road program real quick. How many roads do you have in this year's road program? And how do you feel about the DPW process? Because, you know, they still do drainage work, right? They help clean out some ditches and things of that nature. So let's start with number of roads in the road program, and then let's talk about the DPW process, which the road program funds.
You know, this year we actually have 17 roads that are on the list to be overlaid, repaired. I have one. Okay. It'll be the first phase of North Dall Road. Okay. Now, North Dall's a very long country road, so it's just one of them roads that there's no way we could do the whole road at one time, right? Because of the cost. So you have to do it in phases. We did South Satsuma Road the same way. Okay. You know, we did phase 1, which basically did from 190 to the interstate. Now they're fixing to do the south part of it below the interstate. Now that's not in my district, but you know, it's a road that ties in with me. Right. So that's also on the list this year. That's the two that would kind of impact my area, my constituents. Now I think the first year we were in office, I had like 3, which South Satsuma Road was one of them. Friendship Road got all redone. Also had the state come through and did King Market Road from 449 to, I think they did it from actually 16 all the way through. So I had a lot happen the first year. Yeah. As far as roads between the state and parish. Right. As far as the way it's done, I don't think we can get much fairer than the way it's done. We have an engineering firm that, you know, they have a checklist. They go down the checklist, they put the roads in order of what they feel like needs it the most. You know, now all roads in our parish, if it's considered a parish road, it's basically on the list. Right. But it's up to the parish councilman to say, hey, these 2 roads in my district really need to be looked at so that they can get scored and we can find out where they fall out on the list. Right. Now, you might score good this year and they don't actually get to your road, so you put it in next year's list and it might not score that good compared to all the new roads that go in. So sometimes you could have a road just sit there rolling on the bottom and could never get done because of the roads that come in ahead of it that are worse. Right. You know, so that's probably the only downfall I see is you can have a road kind of get lost in the bottom. Sure. But I think I would like to see a little more emphasis on the ditches on the side of these roads. I've been noticing, we've been having these rainstorms that are killing us. Yeah. You know, we had one 3 days ago, 6 inches of rain. Seemed like it all dropped right there at Lockhart Crossing. Yeah. At 16. Yeah. You know, I mean, I was actually eating supper right there and drove through it, and I just couldn't believe, you know, how bad it was in a short amount of time. Oh. So, you know, and that's one of them areas where that's 2 main state roads that cross. You know, you kind of, some of it's state, some of it's us, you know, and you mentioned a while ago that sometimes it's hard to get the two working together. Yeah. You know, I know we do a lot with our vacuum truck. We try to run out there when we have an issue like that, it's clogged up, but it's hard for us to do it if the state is not willing to work with us. Right. Because, you know, our tax money is collected for a certain purpose. Yeah. And by law, that's all you can spend it on. Right. You know, so if it's collected to take care of parish roads, we can't be out on a state road doing work with that money. Because if we send a worker out there, that's that money. Right. Because we're paying for him to be there. Right. So it's, you know, like I said, back 30 years ago, just go do it.
Yeah.
Now you have rules you have to follow.
Right.
And I mean, you know, sometimes you just have to say, you know what, these people are suffering. We're just going to go out there and fix it. You know, and
better to ask for forgiveness and permission.
Correct. You know, so I mean, one of the biggest things that I have noticed when riding around is, you know, the people that's been here for 50 years, you know, to me, I feel like they're the ones that suffer the most. Mm-hmm. Because you have these developments that come in, they build beside them, they build up, you know, and a lot of the thought is, well, they're building way up and they're going to flood me. And as soon as it rains, all of a sudden their driveway's all in the water and all this. Well, what I've noticed, and this is just recently that I've noticed this, they put these developments in, they put these big culverts, they make their drainage to where it's flowing through their development and it's flowing right. Well, then here's this guy that built 50 years ago and the requirement was a 12-inch culvert.
Right.
So guess where the backup is?
Yeah. Right in front
so guess whose yard's going to flood?
Yeah.
You know, so it winds up being a lot of what I've seen is we really need an upgrade on culverts in our parish.
Yes.
You know, we need to have an engineer go through, find these culverts. You know, I've seen places where they don't even have a culvert.
Yeah. People
just filled in the ditch and put their driveway. It might be just an entrance to a pasture or something.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, or they found a little piece of pipe off of a construction somewheres and they decided, well, this will be my culvert. You know?
Yeah.
Because it's not a permit for a housing, you know, and these areas they're creating problems.
Yeah.
But whenever the people put it in 50 years ago, that was the correct culvert.
And it matched up.
And it matched up. But now you're having that water get to you faster because of the developments, and it winds up flooding your yard.
Right.
So I think a lot of stuff can be fixed if we were to look into some type of culvert upgrade program.
Right.
You know, and I mean, I've talked to some of the other councilmen about it. We are going to look into it and see if we can't do some type of proposal, because look, the road tax fund says for roads, paving, maintenance, and drainage of roads.
Right.
So we should be able to do something whenever we do a road. If we have 5 or 6 culverts on that road that are causing a problem, why can't we just fix them?
You
know,
it seems so simple.
Yeah. So,
well, and that is a good thought. You know, and that was something that was brought up by that engineering firm, B Quality, was that, you know, size of culverts matters and they have to match up as you flow downstream.
Correct.
So we will be diving a lot deeper in on roads and drainage here in the podcast. So please be on the lookout for that as we get to it. Last question for you this morning. You know, we talked about drainage, talked about either a tax or a fee or something like that. You also had a rec district tax that, you know, that was an unfortunate situation between Livingston and Satsuma. They decided they wanted to split. Didn't have some success on the back end. When we're talking about those two entities, that would be recreation and drainage. If they came back up again, what would you do differently?
The biggest thing is the plan. Just talking to the people. A lot of people don't want, just ask me for a tax.
Right.
Show me your plan.
Right.
You know, have town hall meetings. Let us come sit in, see your plan. Tell us what we're going to do with your money.
Right.
You know, now, I guess in my defense, the drainage tax that we had to pass, that was the first one I was involved with.
Right.
It came right after the flood. You know, and it almost looked like we were trying to use the flood to scare people into doing it. But we had actually started before the flood.
Right.
Working on it. We had already got the district back together. We were talking about it, and the flood happened.
Right.
You know, now I was one that was trying to slow it down. I was kind of like, look, I think we need a little bit better plan. But you did kind of have that, well, people are hurting.
Yeah.
You know, we need to try to do something in case another one happens. You know, so I kind of backed off and let the drainage board handle it.
Yeah.
You know, if y'all feel that's what we need to do, then I'm going to back you and we'll go with it.
Okay.
But I do feel like a plan would definitely make it better to show the people, you know, this is what's going to happen with the money.
Got it. Okay. Well, we will be diving deeper on a lot of those issues in the podcast that'll be coming out this afternoon. Again, and one last thing. Kane Market was designated as an emergency repair.
Yes.
It'll be $150,000, and as long as weather permits, it should be done by school. They're hoping to have it done and inspected by next Thursday afternoon. Now that's weather permitting, folks.
Yes. Now, I mean, a lot of people on that issue, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, what's the big deal? You buy another culvert and you throw it in the ground and put some asphalt on top of it. Now, this is a 4 to 5 foot culvert. This is not just a little small culvert you're putting under a driveway. It's one of the main drainages for Spring Lake subdivision.
Right.
You know, so it's a huge culvert, and we were lucky that one was found in storage.
Right.
You know, and I forget what parish they got it from, but luckily they had one. I mean, you're talking a 4 or 5 foot culvert, 40 foot long. That you know, had it not been there, we would have had to wait for one to be made. So we got very lucky that someone had one in storage. Mm-hmm. We were able to get it. I actually think it's supposed to arrive today.
Oh, cool.
The contractor that was awarded the contract, I think, is Brazo.
That sounds right. Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to be there today, putting their plan together to where they can start rolling Monday. But like I say, now what you got, a lot of people think, well, if it rains, that just slows the project down for a little while till it drains out. This is a main drainage ditch.
Yeah.
So when it rains, they're not just dealing with their soil getting wet. You got all that water rushing through there where they're trying to do the work to do the repair.
Right.
So you can't have water rushing through there and they're trying to pack dirt around this culvert to make it where it's sealed right in there.
Yeah.
So rain can affect it in more than just wetting the dirt.
Right. And especially if it's one of those 6 inches of rain in 70 minutes.
Correct.
That'll change the whole landscape of the project.
Yes.
Again, thank you, sir, for joining us. We will have, as mentioned, the longer form podcast here in just a little bit. You and I are going to take a 5-minute break and jump into it. Traffic's still pretty light, thankfully, on this slow Friday. Weather, again, it is currently 73 degrees, and it feels like 73. Love when those match up. It is now turned into an 80% chance of rain, so you can just expect some afternoon thunderstorms. Again, my name is McHugh David, District Councilman from District 1. Jeff Ard has joined us. A couple of statistics about his district real quick. About 12,551 people may change after the census. Please answer that. And about 4,350 households is the current list, according to the United Way.
Yes.
Again, we are on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Please follow us there. We're online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. You can find these shows as well as the long-form podcast at www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. And we are in print on Thursday. We will be back at you this afternoon for an afternoon show, and hopefully we will have the podcast out between Mr. Jeff Ard and I before then. Thanks for joining us.
All right.